She cheated with my best friend, then stole $250, $0 in our divorce. Now he's suing me for half the property I inherited from my grandmother, and I just found out she sabotaged my legal case from inside the courthouse. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, I thought I knew everything about my wife, Lisa. We'd been married for 8 years, built a life together, or so I thought. She always seemed a little bitchy, a bit high maintenance, but I figured that was just her personality. She was the kind of woman who liked things her way, demanding, often dismissive, but she could be sweet when she wanted to be. I never suspected she'd cheat on me, let alone with my best friend, Mark. That was until the signs started piling up and I finally caught her red-handed. It all started a few months ago. Lisa became increasingly distant, long hours at work, late nights and secretive phone calls. I noticed her deleting texts, hiding her phone, and sometimes she'd get defensive when I asked about her whereabouts. She'd brush it off, say I was being paranoid, or accuse me of not trusting her. But I knew something was wrong. My gut told me I was missing pieces of the puzzle. Then came the night I decided to surprise her at her office. I had a gut feeling she was hiding something and I wanted to see for myself. I parked nearby and waited until she left around 8 p.m. I followed her to a downtown bar she'd never mentioned before. It was an upscale spot, dimly lit, and I saw her go inside with a man I didn't recognize. My stomach clenched. I watched as they sat close, laughing, touching her arm in a way that felt more intimate than just friends. I could see her leaning in, whispering, and her hand resting on his knee. I recognized the man, Mark, my best friend. My mind reeled. How could she do this? How could she betray me with the one person I trusted most? I waited outside for a few minutes, trying to process what I'd just seen. When she came out, she looked different, more relaxed, almost smug. She got into a cab and I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. The cab took her to a hotel downtown. I parked nearby, watching her go. Inside, I couldn't believe it. My wife Lisa was cheating on me with Mark and they were sneaking around behind my back. The betrayal cut so deep I felt numb. All those years, all that trust, shattered in that moment. The next morning I confronted her. I didn't want to make a scene, but I needed answers. I waited until she got home from work, and when she walked through the door I was already waiting. I told her I knew about the affair with Mark. Her face twisted into a sneer and she spat out, "You're crazy, you have no proof." But I had seen enough. Photos, texts, the hotel receipts. I threw everything on the table, evidence I'd gathered over the last few days. Her eyes widened and for a split second I saw real panic. Lisa's reaction was classic. Deny, deny, deny. She told me I was overreacting, that it was just a fling, that Mark was just a friend helping her with some work project. She looked me dead in the eyes and lied through her teeth about everything. "You're imagining things," she said. "You're paranoid." But I knew better. I had seen her kiss him goodbye, heard their whispered conversations, and found her panties in her purse, ones I'd never seen before. The betrayal hit harder than I thought possible. I felt a mixture of rage, heartbreak, and a profound sense of betrayal I couldn't put into words. That night was a whirlwind. I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, trying to find some way to make sense of it all. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could Mark, my best friend, do this to me? It was like my entire world was crumbling, and I was helpless to stop it. I couldn't believe I'd been blind for so long, trusting her even as she manipulated me behind my back. I started questioning everything about our marriage, about who Lisa really was. My mind kept circling back to the money, the family inheritance, the property I'd inherited from my grandmother, all of it suddenly feeling like a target in this chaos. I found out she had been secretly siphoning money from our joint accounts, money I thought was going toward our future. It wasn't just the affair that sickened me. It was the way she used me. She was stealing from us, from my family's legacy. I've been so focused on her lies about her work stress and her busy schedule that I missed the warning signs. Now I was left with a broken marriage, a stolen fortune, and the gut-wrenching realization that my best friend had betrayed me not just emotionally but financially as well. I kept asking myself, how did I get here? How did I let this happen? And most of all, what do I do now? After I confronted Lisa that night, everything changed. The air was thick with tension, her eyes darting around, trying to come up with some excuse, some way to spin her lies. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I looked at her and saw the bitchy, manipulative woman she'd always been. Only now I saw her for what she really was: a liar, a cheat, someone capable of destroying everything I'd worked for. I decided I needed to get some space, clear my head. I went to stay at my brother's place for a few days, trying to process everything. But even then, the shock kept hitting me in waves. I couldn't believe she'd do this to me, to us. And worse, I discovered she'd been secretly draining money from our joint accounts, stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last year. She lied about her expenses, played the innocent victim whenever I questioned her. But I had the proof: bank statements, hidden receipts, transfers she never knew I'd uncovered. It was like she was trying to burn everything to the ground, including my inheritance from my grandmother, which she knew I'd been planning to use for a big investment. The next step was obvious. I had to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I couldn't just let her keep lying and stealing. I started digging into her phone, her emails, everything I could find. I wanted to understand how deep this betrayal went. That's when I found out she'd been sabotaging my legal case from inside the courthouse. I had a lawyer, a good one, and I'd been fighting for my inheritance, my grandmother's property, which I'd inherited just before all this chaos. Lisa, in her bitchy, manipulative way, had been leaking information, tampering with documents, even bribing a clerk or two to slow down my case. I was furious. That was the final straw. She crossed every line, and I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. Not as a wife, not as a partner, not as a human being. I had to act fast. I reached out to my lawyer, and together we started building a case. I wanted full custody of the property, and I wanted her out of my life for good. I also filed for divorce, knowing that if I didn't act quickly, she'd try to keep everything for herself: her lies, her money, her affair, everything. But here's the thing. While I was gathering evidence, I also realized I needed to be strategic. Lisa was bitchy and manipulative, sure, but she was also cunning. She'd lied so many times that I had to assume she'd try to spin everything in her favor. I started recording conversations, saving texts, and even installing a few discreet cameras around the house. I wasn't planning to hurt her, but I wanted the truth to come out. I wanted justice. I knew she'd lie her way out of everything, but I also knew I had the proof to back me up. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how much she'd been planning this. The affair with Mark was just the tip of the iceberg. She'd been secretly working on her escape plan for months, draining funds, sabotaging my legal case, and lying to everyone, including her own family. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I thought I knew her, but she'd been living a double life right under my nose. And then came the shocker. I found out she'd stolen $250, $0 from our joint accounts during the divorce process. That's when I knew she wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively trying to destroy me financially. I felt a mix of rage and helplessness. How could someone do this? How could she betray me so thoroughly? I was furious, but I also felt crushed. My trust was shattered, and I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust anyone again. Meanwhile, Mark was suing me for half the property I inherited from my grandmother. I couldn't believe it. He was supposed to be my best friend, and now he was trying to take half of what's rightfully mine, even though I knew he was involved with Lisa. I got served papers, and I saw that they were trying to claim joint ownership of the property. The whole thing felt like a nightmare. I'd worked so hard to build a future, and now I was fighting a legal battle that seemed impossible to win. The emotional toll was incredible. I oscillated between anger, sadness, and a sick sense of betrayal. Every time I thought I'd hit rock bottom, something else came crashing down: more lies, more money stolen, more deception. I felt like I was drowning, but I knew I had to stay strong. I had to fight for what was mine, for my inheritance, and for my sanity. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not after everything. So here I am now, trying to piece my life back together. I've cut her out of my life completely, hired a new lawyer, and am preparing for the fight of my life. I can't believe how much damage one person can do in such a short amount of time. I keep asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her manipulate me, but I guess that's just part of the process. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. All I know is I'm not going down without a fight, and I'll do whatever it takes to get justice for myself and my inheritance. The more I delved into her lies, the clearer it became that Lisa had been planning this entire betrayal for months. She'd carefully orchestrated her moves, from the affair with Mark to the financial sabotage. I started noticing small things, hidden receipts, unexplained bank transfers, emails that seemed off. It was like peeling back layers of a rotten onion, and each layer revealed more of her treachery. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting. The worst part was knowing she'd lied to my face every step of the way, convincing me she was the victim when she was the mastermind behind it all. One night, I found a backup of her emails on an old cloud account I'd forgotten about. I was just browsing through the folders when I saw it, an email from Lisa to a lawyer she'd hired secretly. She was trying to bribe him, offering him money to delay my legal case, to slow down the court proceedings so she could keep her claws in the property and her money. My blood ran cold. That was when I realized how deep her deception went. She wasn't just cheating on me, she was actively working to ruin me, legally and financially. I printed out everything I could find, screenshots, emails, bank statements, and handed them over to my lawyer. We immediately started building a case for her to be held accountable, not just for the affair but for the financial crimes she'd committed. I also discovered she'd been secretly funneling money into accounts under false names, trying to hide her theft from me. It was like she'd been planning her escape from our marriage and her financial responsibilities for a long time. Meanwhile, Mark's lawsuit was gaining traction. He was claiming half of the property I inherited, even though I had clear documentation proving it was my grandmother's estate, solely in my name. I knew Mark was trying to take advantage of the chaos, but I was prepared. I had the legal documents, the evidence of her sabotage, and a good lawyer who was ready to fight for me. Still, it was unnerving to see how far she'd gone to manipulate the system, even trying to get Mark to join her in her schemes. I found messages where she was instructing him on how to lie during depositions, how to hide evidence, how to make it all look convincing. The emotional toll was wearing me down. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. I'd always considered myself a straightforward guy, honest, loyal, and now I was fighting not just for my property but for my reputation. I couldn't believe the woman I'd married could be so calculating and ruthless. It's like her bitchy exterior hid a manipulative, cold-hearted person who'd do anything to get what she wanted. But what hit me hardest was realizing how much I'd trusted her. I never thought she'd betray me this way, by cheating, stealing from us, and trying to sabotage my legal case all at once. I kept replaying the moments when she'd lied so convincingly, the times she'd dismissed my concerns, and the nights she'd sneaked around with Mark. It was as if I'd been living with a stranger all along, someone I didn't really know. I also uncovered her plans to leave the country if things got too messy. She'd been researching visas, fake identities, and even had a suitcase packed in the closet with some cash hidden inside. That's when I realized she was ready to run, probably with Mark and the stolen money, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I felt both anger and despair. How could she be so selfish, so ruthless? I'd given her everything, my love, my trust, my savings, and she was throwing it all away for a quick escape. At that point, I had no choice but to fight harder. I contacted law enforcement about her financial crimes. I hired a private investigator to monitor her movements. I even considered hiring a forensic accountant to trace every dollar she'd stolen. I knew I had to be meticulous because she was a bitchy, manipulative woman who would stop at nothing to save herself. And Mark, he was equally complicit. I found out he'd been lying to me for years, pretending to be my best friend while secretly planning to take my inheritance. I saw texts where he was encouraging Lisa, reassuring her that everything would be fine, that he'd help her get away with everything. That realization cut deep. My best friend, the guy I'd trusted with my life, was nothing more than a traitor. Now, I stand here in the middle of a legal storm trying to protect what's rightfully mine. The property, the inheritance, my reputation. I'm angry, hurt, and exhausted, but I refuse to let her get away with it all. This is a war, and I'm determined to win. I won't let her manipulate the system, steal my future, or ruin what little trust I have left. I've learned a brutal lesson about trust, betrayal, and the true nature of the people I once thought I knew. And if there's anything I can say to anyone reading this, be careful who you trust. Because sometimes the biggest betrayals come from the people you least expect. Every day since I uncovered her schemes has felt like walking a tightrope. On one side, there's anger and betrayal; on the other, a desperate need to stay rational and not let her manipulate me further. I've learned to read her moves better now, her bitchy smirks, her dismissive tone when she's trying to deceive me, and her subtle hints that she's planning her escape. It's like she's been playing a game, and I was just too blind to see the rules. Now I see everything clearly, and I know I can't let her win. The legal battle is heating up. My lawyer has been relentless, gathering more evidence, filing motions, and preparing for depositions. We've also hired a forensic accountant who's been tracing every dollar she's stolen. It's shocking how meticulously she tried to hide her money: multiple bank accounts under fake names, offshore accounts, shell companies. She was planning to disappear with Mark, take the stolen cash, and leave me with nothing. That thought fuels my resolve even more. I won't let her get away with it. Meanwhile, Mark's legal team is trying to turn the tables. They're claiming I'm an unfit husband, trying to paint me as controlling and paranoid. It's classic gaslighting, but I have enough evidence to prove her sabotage and her financial crimes. I've also got recordings of her instructing Mark on how to lie during depositions, how to fake injuries, and how to manipulate the court. I never thought I'd be in a position where I'd have to record my own wife, but I guess desperation pushes you to do things you never imagined. The property dispute is another nightmare. Mark is claiming half of the inheritance, even though I have the original estate documents proving it's solely in my name. Lisa's been pushing hard, trying to gaslight the court, saying I'm trying to hide money, that I'm an untrustworthy husband. She's been spinning stories about how I'm abusive, controlling, and paranoid. But I have the evidence: bank statements, texts, witnesses showing her lies. I've even hired a private investigator to gather dirt on her to prove she's been planning her escape from the beginning. The emotional toll is intense. Sometimes I wake up feeling numb, other times I'm consumed with rage. I keep asking myself how I let this happen, how I trusted her for so long, how I didn't see the signs. It's like she was a wolf in sheep's clothing, pretending to be the perfect wife while secretly plotting her escape. I feel betrayed, humiliated, and honestly, a little stupid for not seeing it sooner. But I also realize I need to focus on what I can control now: my legal case, my future, and protecting what's left of my sanity. One thing I've learned is how dangerous people can be when they're desperate. Lisa's bitchy exterior masked a cold, calculating mind. She'd lie, cheat, steal, and manipulate, all to keep her life of lies intact. I found out she was even trying to bribe court officials, offering them money to sway decisions in her favor. That's when I knew I had to be even more careful. I couldn't trust the system to work in my favor unless I had concrete evidence and a solid legal team. I also discovered she'd been secretly contacting Mark's lawyer, trying to negotiate a deal behind my back. That's when I realized she was willing to do anything, to save herself and her new life. She'd even threatened to disappear with the money and start over somewhere abroad if she thought she'd lose everything. That's when I decided I'd bet her act fast. I filed a motion to freeze her bank accounts to prevent her from transferring any more stolen money. I also hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her movements. I couldn't let her slip away with everything. The hardest part is knowing she's been lying so effortlessly, even to her own family. I've heard her pretending to be the victim, crying about how I'm controlling and abusive, things that aren't true. I know she's good at twisting the truth, and that's what makes her so dangerous. But I've also learned that the truth has a way of coming out. With enough evidence, I'm confident I can win this battle. I just have to stay strong, keep my head clear, and not let her manipulate me anymore. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever fully trust again. The woman I loved and married turned out to be someone I barely recognize. She's a liar, a thief, and a manipulator, a bitchy woman who's willing to ruin lives for her own benefit. I feel stupid for trusting her, but I also feel a sense of clarity now. I see her for who she really is, and I'm determined to fight to the end. I won't let her get away with stealing my property, my inheritance, or my dignity. This is a war I intend to win, no matter how dirty she's willing to play. And Mark, I can't believe I ever called him my friend. He's just as guilty, complicit in her schemes, lying to my face, trying to take what's not theirs. I have enough evidence to expose him, too. I want the court to see the truth, that this wasn't just a messy divorce, but a carefully planned betrayal by two people I once trusted. If I can come out of this with my property, my reputation, and some sense of justice, I'll consider it a victory. But honestly, it's going to take a lot of strength. I've been betrayed in every way possible, and I still have a long fight ahead. Every day feels like a new battle, and I'm constantly on edge. Lisa's bitchy attitude has only intensified since I started digging into her schemes. She's more aggressive, more manipulative, trying to spin stories to anyone who will listen, her family, her friends, even some court officials. She's good at pretending to be the victim, crying about how I'm controlling her, how I'm trying to ruin her reputation. But I see through her now, her lies, her manipulations, her desperation. She's cornered, and I can tell she's panicking. My lawyer has been working tirelessly. We've filed multiple motions, one to freeze her assets, another to disallow her from leaving the state, and a third to subpoena her bank accounts and emails. Every step exposes more of her deception. I also got a judge to order a forensic audit of her financials, which is revealing some shocking details. She's been hiding money in offshore accounts, transferring funds to shell companies, all to cover her tracks. It's like she thought she could outsmart the legal system, but we're one step ahead. Meanwhile, I've been gathering witnesses, people who can testify about her behavior, her lies, and her attempts to manipulate the court. I even hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her, following her movements, recording her interactions. It's unsettling to realize how far she's willing to go. She's tried to bribe court officials, offered hush money to witnesses, and even threatened to disappear with the stolen cash if she thought she'd lose everything. That's when I decided I had to get an emergency restraining order to prevent her from leaving the country or transferring any more assets. The property issue remains Mark's team is trying to argue that the property was a gift, that I had no right to it, even though I have all the original estate documents proving it's my grandmother's inheritance. I've presented the court with my evidence, but Lisa's team is trying to spin it as a marital asset, even though I inherited it before we were married. It's a classic move, trying to conflate everything to make me look bad, but I know the truth and I've got the proof. I just have to stay strong and keep fighting. The emotional toll is brutal. I'm constantly exhausted, battling feelings of betrayal, anger, and sadness. I keep replaying the moments when Lisa lied to my face, when she manipulated everyone around her, even her own family. It's like I've been living with a stranger all along, someone capable of such ruthless deception. I feel stupid for trusting her, but I also feel a deep sense of loss of the woman I thought I knew and the life we were supposed to build. I wonder how I ever let it get this far, how I didn't see her true nature sooner. One thing I do know is that I can't let her win. She's desperate now, and her bitchiness is turning into outright hostility. She's trying to gaslight everyone, claiming I'm the bad guy, that I'm controlling and abusive, even though I have no history of that. I've been keeping detailed records of everything, texts, emails, recordings, so I can prove her lies. I've also been working closely with my lawyer to prepare for the upcoming court hearings. I want her to face the consequences of her actions, to be held accountable for the financial crimes, the sabotage, and the betrayal. I also learned she's been trying to turn her own family against me, painting herself as the victim. She's told them I'm abusive, controlling, and that I've been trying to ruin her. None of that is true, but her bitchy, manipulative nature makes her convincing. That's why I've decided to be transparent about everything, sharing my evidence, explaining what she's done, and making sure the court sees the full picture. I want justice, not just for myself but for the life I deserve. Honestly, I'm tired of the lies, the deception, and the constant fight. But I know I have no choice. I have to keep pushing forward, even when it feels like I'm fighting a losing battle. Lisa's been relentless, but so have I. I've learned that sometimes the only way to deal with a toxic person is to cut them out completely and fight for what's right. I may be battered and exhausted, but I'm not giving up. Not now. Not after everything I've been through. Deep down, I know this isn't just about money or property anymore. It's about standing up for myself, reclaiming my life, and making sure she can't hurt me or anyone else again. I've been betrayed in every way possible, but I refuse to let her take everything I've built. I will see this through, no matter how dirty she plays or how much she tries to manipulate the system. Because at the end of the day, I know the truth, and I know I deserve better than this nightmare she's created. Now, as I sit here reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize how much I've changed, how much I've learned about trust, betrayal, and the true nature of the people around me. Lisa's bitchy, manipulative facade was just a mask for her real self, someone willing to lie, cheat, steal, and even sabotage her own future for a quick escape. Her affair with Mark was only a part of her bigger plan to destroy what little stability I had left. She wanted to take everything from me, the property, the inheritance, my dignity, and she almost succeeded. But I fought back with everything I had. I hired the right lawyers, gathered irrefutable evidence, and refused to let her manipulate the system. It was a brutal, exhausting process, but I knew I had to stand my ground. I saw how far she was willing to go, bribing officials, lying under oath, trying to run away with stolen money. But I also saw the strength I had within myself. I refused to be another victim of her wicked game. The final court hearing was intense. I presented every piece of evidence, from her secret bank accounts to the emails where she plotted her escape. The judge saw through her lies, and in the end, she was held accountable for her financial crimes and her betrayal. The property was awarded to me, and she was ordered to pay back the stolen funds plus damages. Mark's lawsuit was dismissed, and he was also ordered to pay penalties for his involvement. It was a hard-fought victory, but I walked out of that courtroom feeling lighter, finally free from her web of lies. The aftermath has been a mix of relief and raw emotional pain. I've had to rebuild my trust in people, learning to see through the masks and recognize the true intentions behind the smiles. I've cut ties with Lisa completely. She's trying to spin her story, but I don't care anymore. I know the truth, and that's what matters. I've also made peace with the fact that I might never fully trust anyone again, but I've learned that I don't need to be naive. Either staying vigilant, protecting myself, and valuing honesty are lessons I'll carry forward. Financially, I've started to recover. I've secured my inheritance and cleaned up the mess she left behind. I've put safeguards in place to prevent anyone from doing this to me again. Better legal protections, control of my assets, and a new sense of cautiousness. I realize now that money can't buy happiness, but it can provide security, especially after such a betrayal. I don't regret the fight. I only wish I'd seen her true nature sooner. Still, I'm grateful that I finally stood up for myself and refused to let her destroy everything. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. I used to be naive, trusting too easily, believing that people like Lisa were capable of genuine love. Now I know better. People can wear masks, and sometimes those masks hide the most dangerous secrets. But I also see the importance of resilience, of standing tall even when everything feels like it's falling apart. I learned that survival isn't just about fighting back physically or legally. It's about protecting your own sense of self, your integrity, and your peace of mind. To anyone out there facing similar betrayal, I'd say this: trust is fragile and it's okay to be cautious. Keep your eyes open, gather evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Sometimes the people you love the most can hurt you the deepest, but that doesn't mean you have to let them win. Stand your ground, seek justice, and remember that your worth isn't defined by their lies or manipulations. In the end, the truth always has a way of coming out. And when it does, you'll find the strength to move forward, stronger, wiser, and more prepared for whatever life throws your way.